Friends, before we dive into today's story, I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and share your thoughts in the comments below. It won't take you more than a second, but it means the world to me and helps this channel grow. Your support keeps the stories coming, so don't miss out. Subscribe now and join our little storytelling family. Now, let's step into today's tale. For thousands of years, the majestic pyramids of Egypt have stood silently above the sands of the desert. Everything related to the great ancient civilization that once ruled these lands remained shrouded in mystery. That was the case until July 19, 1799, when a French soldier participating in Napoleon Bonaparte's Egyptian expedition discovered a large stone about 35 miles east of Alexandria. This discovery made it possible to unlock the secrets of a written language that had been forgotten for millennia. The deciphering of these texts became the key to understanding the history and culture of an entire civilization. It was no coincidence that Herodotus, the father of history, called Egypt the gift of the Nile. This great river was a source of life, providing water for agriculture and allowing civilization to flourish along its valley. The Nile Valley, dividing the Egyptian territory into two parts, created favorable conditions for the development of society. Formed in Miocene times, the valley eventually took its present shape, and its diverse geographical resources contributed to the rise of the Egyptian state. For centuries, the annual floods of the Nile brought fertile silt to the eastern and western lands. When the water receded, leaving the banks, the agricultural year began, making Egypt one of the earliest farming communities in human history. By the end of the Paleolithic era, there was widespread use of arrows, harpoons, and tools made from bone and clay, as well as skin processing. Radiocarbon analysis has shown that grain harvesting was already taking place in a Neolithic granary on the edge of the Fayum between 4640 to 50 BCE. Later, people began to build huts made of reeds and mud brick, cultivating grain in the silty soil of the Nile's wetlands. Ancient Egypt was divided into two regions: Upper Egypt in the south, stretching to Aswan, and Lower Egypt in the north, where the Nile split into multiple branches forming the delta. Around 3000 BCE, King Narmer united the two kingdoms. Each, however, retained its symbols of power: the white crown Hejit for Upper Egypt and the red crown Deshret for Lower Egypt. As a result, pharaohs became known as lords of the two lands and wore the double crown pshent, each half symbolizing sovereignty over its respective region. The pre-dynastic period in Egyptian history covers the time before written records appeared, roughly from 6000 to 3150 BCE, spanning from the Paleolithic and Neolithic ages to the formation of the First Dynasty. Although there are no written sources from this era, archaeological findings from the Nile Valley reveal the cultural development of the region. The pre-dynastic period is usually named after regions or sites where artifacts were discovered, rather than by specific cultural names. The Helwan culture flourished around 30,000 BCE in the area between Egypt and Nubia, giving rise to the Cadan and Sibyllian cultures around 10,000 BCE, as well as the Hariffian culture. All of these societies consisted of hunter-gatherers who gradually transitioned to a settled lifestyle based on agriculture. The Fayum Oasis, a natural depression southeast of the Giza Plateau, became home to the Fayum civilization between 9000 and 6000 BCE. These people lived by a large lake, engaging in farming, hunting, and fishing. The inhabitants of Fayum built reed houses with underground storage pits for supplies, domesticated cattle, sheep, and goats, and developed basket weaving and pottery production. During this time, tribal leaders emerged, whose authority was likely hereditary. Communities evolved from small nomadic groups into larger federations of tribes permanently residing in one region. The Fayum culture eventually gave rise to the Merimd culture, which existed between 5000 and 4000 BCE, named after the site of discoveries on the western edge of the Nile Delta. Most Egyptians were farmers, and agriculture formed the foundation of the dynastic Egyptian economy. Farmers relied on the annual summer floods of the Nile to grow their crops. It is known that the first Egyptian farmers were once hunters and gatherers. They cultivated crops such as wheat, lentils, barley, flax, and peas, and also engaged in animal husbandry. According to findings in the western Nile Delta, the earliest Larezawe Bani Salame culture developed 2000, and 4000 BCE, as well as the Fayum Basin, belong to the Neolithic era. The convex relief of the Nile Valley contributed to the formation of numerous basins that, in ancient times, were annually filled with floodwaters rich in silt that fertilized the soil. About 130 of these basins have been identified, and they served as reservoirs within the irrigation systems of ancient Egypt. Grain storage facilities were made from clay jars or baskets buried in the ground up to their necks. Around 4000 BCE, the Elomori culture advanced these developments by constructing more complex round houses with plastered clay walls. All of these cultures evolved and thrived in Lower Egypt, while the civilization of Upper Egypt formed later. The people of the Badarian culture lived in mobile tents, like their distant ancestors, but they preferred permanent dwellings. The Badarian period was followed by the Amratian period, also known as Naqadai, during which more complex houses were built, featuring windows, hearths, walls made of wattle and clay, and wind barriers at the main entrance. The practice of mummification emerged around 3500 BCE, with burial goods placed alongside the deceased. This development was influenced by the Gurzian culture, or Naqada II, which lasted until about 3200 BCE and established trade connections with other regions, leading to changes in culture and art. Houses were built from mud brick, and the wealthier inhabitants had inner courtyards, a feature that would later become common in Egyptian architecture. The city of Abydos, located north of Naqada, became an important burial site where large tombs were constructed, forming a necropolis, the city of the dead. These tombs were initially made of mud brick, but later built from large, neatly cut limestone blocks. Over time, this site became the royal cemetery of Egyptian rulers. Despite this, evidence suggests that people from all over the country brought their deceased to be buried in Abydos and left funerary offerings in their memory. Bitistim, the Say's Hierakonpolis, were considered ancient, while Thebes, Naqada, and Nekane were rapidly developing. Hieroglyphic writing which appeared around 340 to 00 BCE, was used for record keeping. Although complete, sentences from this early period have not yet been found. The earliest Egyptian inscriptions discovered at Abydos appear on pottery, clay seal impressions, and items made of bone and ivory. Full sentences appear in Egypt only during the reign of King Peribsen of the Second Dynasty, about 500 years later. This era led into the Naqada III period, 3 to 0031, 50 BCE. After Naqada III began the early dynastic period, the beginning of recorded Egyptian history. Trade flourished, communities grew and prospered, and the populations of both Lower and Upper Egypt increased. Small villages with mud brick houses and simple structures developed into larger urban centers, which soon came into conflict, likely over trade routes and water resources. Thebes, Naqada, and Nekane were the three principal city-states of Upper Egypt during this time. It appears that Thebes triumphed over Naqada and later absorbed Nekane. These battles were fought between the so-called Scorpion kings, whose identities remain unknown, and other rulers, most likely Ka and Nama. According to some researchers, Scorpion I, Scorpion II, and Ka were the last three rulers of the pre-dynastic period. Before King Nama, Inthinus unified Lower and Upper Egypt, founding the first dynasty. The early dynastic period in Egypt began around 3150 to 613 BCE. This era marks the beginning of the country's historical age, when Upper Egypt, the south, and Lower Egypt, the north, were united under a centralized authority. During this time, divine kingship emerged, and a distinct Egyptian culture began to form, including the development of writing, art, and science. The first king of Egypt, Menes, was the ruler of Upper Egypt, probably from Thinis or Hierakonpolis, who defeated neighboring city-states and then conquered Lower Egypt around 3150 BCE. Nama married princes. Nethotep of Naqada, which strengthened the ties between the two regions. He led military campaigns in Lower Egypt to suppress rebellions and expanded his territories into Canaan and Nubia. During his reign, large-scale construction projects were carried out and urbanization developed. Nama's successor is believed to have been his son, Horaha, around 3100 BCE, who continued his father's military expansion and broadened Egypt's trade connections. He showed particular interest in religion and the concept of the afterlife, and it was during his reign that the mastaba tomb was built. Horaha was succeeded by his son Jur around 3050 BCE, who followed in his father's footsteps. His own son, Jet, around 3000 BCE, married Princess Mernith and is believed to have taken the throne after his death. It is unclear whether she ruled as regent for her young son Den or as queen in her own right. However, her reign is notable as she became the first woman mentioned as a ruler in ancient Egypt. King Den, around 2970 BCE, is considered the greatest monarch of the first dynasty, ruling for about 50 years. His reputation as an effective ruler was based on economic prosperity, military conquests, and political stability, evidenced by costly construction projects and refined artworks. Den was the first monarch depicted wearing the crowns of both Upper and Lower Egypt, symbolizing his rule over a united nation. Den was succeeded by two more monarchs, Anagib and later Semakit. whose reigns were troubled by rebellions and internal strife. The dynasty ended with the reign of Ka, after which his heirs fought for the throne but were ultimately defeated by Hatshepsut, who founded the second dynasty. Internal conflicts and the lack or misinterpretation of historical records led to the decline of the second dynasty to 890–670 BCE. Reliable dates for the rulers of this dynasty are missing, and some royal names seem to repeat those of earlier kings. Hatshepsut, whose name means powers base, exemplafis, is confusion. Based on his name, it was once thought that he came to power after pacifying princes who had fought for the throne following Ka's death. However, his name is inscribed at the entrance to Ka's tomb, suggesting he was the ruler responsible for Ka's burial, and that he already bore this name before the succession conflict began. Hatshepsut is credited with restoring peace in Egypt after ascending the throne, though his reign was brief and marked by continued instability and uprisings. Ranab, also known as Nebra, was the first ruler to associate his name with those of the gods, thereby establishing a connection between monarchy and divinity. There is no convincing explanation for this theological shift. Earlier, scholars claimed that Ranab was the first monotheist, proclaiming Seth as the sole deity, but evidence of the worship of various gods during his reign disproves this theory. Since his name is found only in Upper Egypt, it is possible that he chose to ally himself with Seth for political reasons, perhaps to distance his rule from the cult of Horus dominant in Lower Egypt. Whatever the reason, he is considered a good monarch, as trade, economy, religion, and art all flourished under his reign. He was succeeded by Niger, also known as Khosekemwe, probably his son, who continued the construction projects of his predecessor and is believed to have reunified Upper and Lower Egypt under central authority, or at least to have strengthened their unity. His most notable works include the statues from Hierakonpolis and Abydos, as well as his role as the father of Pharaoh Djoser. The third dynasty of Egypt began with King Djoser, best known for his step pyramid at Saqqara. The chronology of Monito does not provide precise information about who Sanakht was, when he ruled in the third dynasty, or even what his true name was. Sanakht's name is known only from the Abydos king list, the Turin Papyrus, and to reliefs discovered in Mastaba Tumke at Beit Khalaf. Djoser erected so many monuments that historians long believed his reign lasted at least 20 years. He led military campaigns in the Sinai Peninsula and maintained Egypt's unity, which provided the stability necessary for his vast building projects and the flourishing of the arts. The step pyramid of Djoser at Saqqara is the first known pyramid in Egypt, designed by his architect and vizier Imhotep. Imhotep was a vizier, sage, architect, astronomer, and chief minister under Djoser, the second pharaoh of the third dynasty. He was later deified and worshipped as the god of medicine in Egypt and Greece, where he was associated with the Greek deity Asclepius. Imhotep is believed to have designed the step pyramid complex in the necropolis of Saqqara, near Memphis. This pyramid, consisting of 6 tiers, is the oldest surviving stone monument in the world. The inscription of Imhotep's name on a statue of Djoser found near the pyramid testifies to his high status at court. The inscription includes titles such as Chief of Sculptors and Overseer of Works, historical records describing Egyptian society and medicine during the Old Kingdom indicate that the chief magician at the Pharaoh's court often served as the royal physician of the land. The step pyramid originally began as a simple mastaba with a flat top and sloping sides, similar to many tombs of earlier dynasties. However, Imhotep had far grander plans for the eternal resting place of his king. The step pyramid was constructed as a series of mastabas stacked on top of one another, each smaller than the one below, forming the pyramid's characteristic shape. While early mastabas were built from mud brick, the step pyramid was made of carved limestone blocks decorated with engravings of trees and reeds. Upon completion, the pyramid reached of 60 meters to 103 feet, making it the tallest structure of its time, to protect the king's body and funerary treasures from robbers. Burial chambers were dug beneath the base of the pyramid, forming a labyrinth of corridors and rooms. However, this strategy failed. The tomb was eventually looted, and all its treasures, including the king's body, were stolen. In antiquity, only his foot was discovered within the tomb. Nevertheless, the construction of the step pyramid represent the genius and vision of the architects of the Third Dynasty, who later built the unfinished pyramid, the Layer Pyramid, and many other temples and sanctuaries. These early visionaries laid the foundations for the later true pyramids of the Fourth Dynasty, which have continued to awe and inspire humanity for thousands of years. The Old Kingdom, the Age of Pyramids, the Old Kingdom of Egypt, also known as the Age of Pyramids or the Era of Pyramid Builders, included the Fourth Dynasty, during which King Sneferu perfected the art of pyramid construction. The Great Pyramids of Giza were later built during the reigns of Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure. Historical records from the 4th to the 6th dynasties are scarce, and historians often describe this era as a history written in stone, primarily architectural. Most of what we know about this period has been reconstructed from statues, temples, and inscriptions. The pyramids themselves reveal little about their builders, but the adjacent temples and stelae provide the names of kings and other important information. In addition, carvings and inscriptions found elsewhere record various events and their dates. Finally, in the tomb of the last monarch of the 5th dynasty, Unas, the first pyramid texts were discovered, detailed drawings, and writings within the tomb that shed light on the religious beliefs of the time. During the Old Kingdom, Egypt's elite standardized artistic expression, producing works that reflected the tastes of the capital, Memphis, while other forms of art, such as painting and literature, became more sophisticated during this era. Statues from the late pre-dynastic and early Old Kingdom periods remained stylistically similar. The most famous works of Old Kingdom art, the pyramids of Giza and the Great Sphinx, have survived to this day. Yet, even smaller structures were built with the same precision and beauty. Indeed, Egyptians of later eras looked back upon the art and architecture of the Old Kingdom with great reverence. Although all social classes shared similar religious beliefs, social inequality persisted even after death. The only significant obstacle to entering the afterlife was being buried outside Egypt. Egyptians believed that to be reborn, one had to be buried in Egyptian soil. If someone died abroad, their relatives made every effort to bring the body home, ensuring that proper burial rituals were performed and the deceased could enter the afterlife. Coordinating the massive workforce that built the pyramids of Giza and other monuments required unprecedented bureaucratic efficiency, which could only function under a strong central authority. At the top of this social pyramid stood the pharaoh, whose divine mandate granted him ownership of all Egypt. Egyptian society was divided into literate and illiterate classes. The literate and it defined the nature of Egyptian civilization and everything we know about it today. Egyptian culture placed great emphasis on a person's position in society, though personal influence and ability were often more important than formal titles. The power of the pharaoh set the limits of the bureaucratic system. But the effective administration of the state depended on the nobility, without whom the ruler could not govern. Because the Egyptian king could not personally oversee all aspects of the country, the office of vizier was established as early as the early dynastic period. The vizier, essentially a prime minister, delegated duties among officials, issued royal decrees through scribes, and oversaw military affairs, provincial governors, nomarchs, public works, and tax collection. For a long time, it was believed that Huni, the last king of the Third Dynasty, initiated the large-scale construction projects of the Old Kingdom by building the pyramid at Medum. However, the credit for the Medum pyramid actually belongs to Sneferu, the first king of the Fourth Dynasty, who was likely the son of Huni by a lesser queen. It was Sneferu who ushered in the golden age of the Old Kingdom. His most remarkable achievements were the two pyramids he built at Dosha. Sneferu began his building career with the Medum Pyramid, also known as the False Pyramid due to its unusual shape. It resembles a tower and is surrounded by a massive mound of rubble. The Medum Pyramid became the first true pyramid in Egypt, but it did not stand for long. The reason lay in the changes made to Imhotep's original design. The outer casing rested on sand rather than solid rock, which led to its collapse. In Dosha, there are two other pyramids built by Sneferu, the Bent Pyramid and the Red Pyramid, also known as the Northern Pyramid. The Bent Pyramid got its name because the lower part rises at an angle of 55, which then changes to 43 due to the use of smaller stone blocks, creating the impression of a bend toward the top. The builders completed the base and the sides before realizing that the 55 angle was too steep and changed the plan to finish the project in the best possible way. It seems that Sneferu learned his lesson and began constructing his third pyramid. He appears to us as a ruler unafraid of failure. When the Bent Pyramid did not meet his expectations, he simply started again. The Red Pyramid, named for the reddish limestone used in its construction, was built on a solid foundation for greater stability and had a slope of 43. The Red Pyramid stands 105 meters tall and became Egypt's first truly successful pyramid. Originally, like later pyramids, it was covered in white limestone, which over time crumbled away and was taken by locals for other building purposes. Following the example of Djoser's complex at Saqqara, Sneferu built mortuary temples and other structures around his pyramids, where priests maintained daily rituals after the completion of the Red Pyramid. All of this testifies to the stability of his reign, which he passed on to his son Khufu after his death. The ancient Greek authors called Khufu Cheops and he is best known for his Great Pyramid at Giza. In their writings, the Greeks portrayed him as a tyrant who oppressed his people and forced them to work against their will. This image may have been shaped by stories from the Westcar Papyrus, a collection of fortales about the kings of the 4th dynasty. Discovered by Henry Westcar around 1820 for CE. The papyrus contains stories told by Khufu's sons, including one in which the king summons a magician who claims he can reattach a severed head to a body. Some scholars interpret Khufu's demands for demonstrations as cruel or thoughtless. During Khufu's reign, Egypt became even wealthier thanks to his military campaigns against Nubia and Libya, as well as profitable trade agreements with cities such as Byblos. He also invested in agricultural innovations to improve the lives of his people. Under his rule, the first recorded dam in the world was built at Wadi Jerawi, a mountain area west of modern Helwan. This dam improved the farms of Sisina Biton. The Great Pyramid of Giza, the last of the 7 wonders of the ancient world defining symbol, stands on the Giza Plateau near modern Cairo. It was built over more than 20 years during Khufu's reign. Although there are many hypotheses about its purpose, the most widely accepted is that it served as a tomb for the king. However, how exactly it was built remains a mystery. Historians continue to debate the theory of ramps winding around the structure to move the massive blocks. These theories persist despite growing evidence that the pyramid was built by ancient Egyptians using technical means that were likely so commonplace for them that they saw no reason to document them. Nevertheless, the complexity of the pyramid's internal passages, shafts, and chambers, as well as the nearby Osiris shaft, continues to fuel alternative theories, as does the mystery of the pyramid's precise alignment with the cardinal directions. A prominent figure of that time was Hemunyu, the vizier under Khufu during the 4th dynasty and a relative of the king. He was responsible for overseeing the construction of the Great Pyramid and the building works, and was buried near Khufu's pyramid. The construction of the pyramid was carried out by both skilled and unskilled workers hired by the state. These workers either repaid debts, performed public service, or received payment for their labor. The annual flooding of the Nile was crucial to the survival of the Egyptians, as it spread fertile silt from the riverbanks across all the farmlands along the river. However, during the flood season, farming on these lands became impossible. At that time, the state provided employment to the farmers by assigning them to the construction of monumental structures. These were the people who performed the main physical labor, moving stones, erecting obelisks, and building temples and pyramids that still inspire awe today. After Khufu's death, his relative Jedefah ascended the throne, although he did not belong to the legitimate line of succession. Jedefah was Khufu's son, but appears not to have been the designated heir. Some scholars believe Jedefah built the great Sphinx of Giza, while others attribute it to his brother and successor, Khafa. The Sphinx is the largest monolithic monument in the world, depicting a reclining lion with the head and face of a king. Historically, the face has been identified as Khafa's, but Dobrev and others argue that it represents Khufu. It seems more likely, however, that Khafa built it, as the Sphinx aligns perfectly with his pyramid complex, and its facial features more closely resemble Khafa's than Khufu's. Khafa's pyramid is the second largest in Giza, and his complex is nearly as vast as that of his father. little is known about his reign. According to Egyptian texts, he continued his father's policies and system of governance, concentrating power within the royal family and maintaining strict control over laws and decrees. After Khafa's death, the succession was again briefly disrupted when Bokha, the son of Jedipha, ascended the throne. He ruled for less than a year before Menkaure, Khafa's son, became king. Both Greek and Egyptian sources praise Menkaure, like his father and grandfather. Menkaure began the construction of his own pyramid and mortuary temple at Giza. The pyramid and complex of Menkaure are smaller than those of the two preceding kings, marking a significant shift in the history of the Old Kingdom and signaling one of the factors behind its later decline. The resources required for constructing a great pyramid were no longer as abundant during Menkaure's reign. Nevertheless, he made every effort to create an eternal resting place comparable to those of his father and grandfather. Kura, Menkaure's son and appointed heir, died during the pyramid's construction, disrupting the dynastic line. Menkaure himself died before the completion of his pyramid complex. Despite reigning for 30 years, he was unable to finish the work of his predecessors, something many historians attribute to the depletion of the resources available to him. Shepseskaf, Menkaure's successor, completed his predecessor's pyramid in Giza but chose to be buried in a relatively modest tomb at Saqqara. As noted earlier, monarchs devoted vast resources to their funerary monuments. However, over time, these temples and sanctuaries increasingly came under the control of priests rather than the king himself. Although today the Giza Plateau appears as an ancient, sand-covered site on the outskirts of Cairo during Menkaure's time, it was a city of the dead, inhabited by the living who cared for it. Giza had priests' houses, sanctuaries, workers' quarters, warehouses, workshops, breweries, and all the amenities of a small town. Civil life in ancient Egypt was highly active. The lower social class consisted of peasant farmers who did not own the land they worked or the houses they lived in. The land belonged to the monarch, members of the royal court, nomarchs, and priests. At the start of the day, peasants might say, "Let us work for the nobles." Peasants were almost always farmers, regardless of any other crafts they practiced. They grew and harvested crops, giving most of the produce to the landowner and keeping a small portion for themselves. Most families had personal gardens, tended by women, while the men worked in the fields. The lower classes produced goods used in trade, thus ensuring the survival of the entire civilization. These peasants also made up the labor force that built the Egyptian pyramids and other monuments. When the Nile overflowed its banks, farming became difficult, and both men and women went to work on royal projects. This labor was always paid, and there is no literary or physical evidence to support the claim that any of Egypt's great monuments were built by slave labor. The construction of monuments such as pyramids and their associated funerary complexes, temples, and obelisks provided peasants with a rare opportunity to improve their social standing. Skilled artists and engravers were especially valued in Egypt and were paid more than unskilled workers who simply carried stones from one place to another. Peasants could also raise their status by mastering a craft, producing vases, bowls, plates, and other pottery essential to daily life. Skilled carpenters could make fortunes crafting tables, writing desks, chairs, beds, and storage chests, while artists were in high demand for decorating the homes of the upper class, palaces, tombs, and monuments. Brewers also enjoyed great respect, and breweries were sometimes run by women. In fact, brewing seems to have originally been a female occupation in early Egyptian history. Beer was the most popular drink in ancient Egypt and was often used as a form of payment. Workers on the Giza Plateau received beer rations 3 times a day. It was believed that the god Osiris had gifted this drink to humankind, and brewing was overseen by the goddess Tenenet. Marriage in ancient Egypt was more of a secular than a religious institution. Most marriages across all social classes were arranged by parents. Girls were often married at around 12 years old, and boys at about 15. Royal children were sometimes promised to foreign monarchs in infancy as part of diplomatic alliances. Life in ancient Egypt was not all about work. The Egyptians found plenty of time for leisure, participating in sports and games such as hockey, handball, archery, swimming, tug-of-war, gymnastics, rowing, and a sport known as water jousting, a kind of naval combat on small boats on the Nile, where one participant tried to knock the other into the water while a teammate steered the vessel. Festivals in ancient Egypt varied depending on the occasion, but shared one common feature: feasting. The Egyptian diet consisted mainly of wheat grains and vegetables. Meat was extremely expensive and could only be afforded by royalty. The 4th dynasty ended with the brief reign of Shepseskaf, and the 5th began with much lower expectations. The 5th dynasties Maniov. Their royal names included the name of the sun god Ra, the first 3 rulers of this dynasty, Userkaf, Sahya, and Neferkare, would later be immortalized as divinely chosen kings in the story of the Westcar Papyrus, which tells of their birth. The dynasty began with King Userkaf. However, a woman named Kentkaus, likely the daughter of Menkaure, is referred to in Egyptian texts as the mother of 2 kings of Upper and Lower Egypt, though it remains unclear who these monarchs were. Her monument, the so-called 4th Pyramid of Giza, shows that she was a figure of great importance, though little else is known about her. Userkaf is best known for constructing the Temple of the Sun at Abusir. This building represents a major departure from the royal traditions of the early 4th dynasty and marks the beginning of the end of Giza as a royal necropolis. The sun god Ra was now worshipped directly through the priesthood, diminishing the king's role as the primary representative of the divine. Userkaf's son, Sahir, succeeded him and built his mortuary complex at Abusir near the Sun Temple. Sahya was a capable ruler who led the first Egyptian expedition to Punt and established significant trade agreements with other nations. The land of Punt, on the other hand, became one of Sahyar's greatest achievements, as it eventually turned into an important source of many of Egypt's most valuable resources and was regarded as a legendary land of the gods. Sahya built his own sun temple at Abusir and was the first to use palm-shaped columns in construction, a style that later became standard for columns throughout Egypt. Sahyar's military campaigns and careful management of resources enriched the nation, as evidenced by the elaborate work done on his funerary complex and the inscriptions discovered there. He was succeeded by his son, Neferkare-Kakai. Inscriptions suggest that he was a good and respected ruler. But little is known about his reign, except that the priesthood became even more dominant during his time. His son, Neferufer, succeeded him but died young, possibly around the age of 20. He was followed by King Shepseskare. Nuser then succeeded him, and during his reign, the priests of Ra gained even more power. The bureaucracy surrounding mortuary temples also grew, creating a burden on the royal treasury, which paid for the maintenance and care of these sanctuaries. Menkaure-Kaiu succeeded him, but little is known about his reign other than the fact that he was the last monarch to build a sun temple. Djedkare-Isesi succeeded him toward the end or middle of the 25th century BCE. The origins of Djedkare-Isesi are unclear. He is not considered the son of Menkaure-Kaiu, but may have been related to him. To maintain the stability of the economy, he carried out extensive reforms in the administration and among the clergy. During his reign, Djedkare-Isesi abandoned the traditional practice of erecting a shrine to the solar deity and reduced the number of priests required to maintain the mortuary temples. He also organized a second expedition to Punt, which enriched Egypt and strengthened relations with the region. However, the most significant aspect of Djedkare's reign was the decentralization of the government in Memphis, which gave greater power to local authorities. Djedkare-Isesi was succeeded by his son Unas, whose reign is poorly documented. Unas was the first Egyptian king whose tomb interior was decorated and inscribed. With what became known as the pyramid texts, these inscriptions depict the king communicating with Ra and Osiris. By the beginning of the 6th dynasty, the position of the pharaoh had greatly weakened. Local officials and bureaucrats built more elaborate tombs than the nobility had during the reign of the first monarch. Teti, according to the 2nd century BCE historian Monito, Teti was assassinated by his own guards, an act that would have been unthinkable in earlier times. He was succeeded by Userkare, who may have been involved in the plot. His reign was short, and he was followed by Merera Pepii, under whom the nomarchs gained even more power. By the end of the Old Kingdom, political power had become fragmented and the system decentralized. The restoration of central authority was a long process that continued until the rise of the 11th dynasty. As central authority collapsed, political power fell into the hands of the nomarchs, who established complete local control. This pattern persisted during the reigns of Merenra, Nemtiamsaf I, and Neferkare-Pepi II, who ascended the throne as a child and ruled into extreme old age, marking one of the longest reigns in history. During Pepi II's long reign, the Old Kingdom gradually declined. The growing influence of provincial nomarchs and the priesthood undermined the authority of the central government and the king. Pepi II was followed by Merenra, Nemtiamsaf, to whose reign was very short, and the dynasty ended with Netjerkare, whom some scholars and Egyptologists identify with Queen Nitocris, the queen mentioned by Herodotus, who avenged her brother's murder by drowning his killers during a banquet. Pepi II outlived all his heirs and appears to have been an ineffective ruler in his later years, marking the final weakening of centralized royal power in ancient Egypt. When drought brought famine to the land, there was no effective central authority capable of responding. The Old Kingdom ended with the 6th dynasty because no strong ruler emerged to unite, and lead the people. Local authorities focused on their own regions and had neither the means nor the motivation to assist the rest of the nation. As the sixth dynasty waned, Egypt gradually descended into what became known as the First Intermediate Period. The First Intermediate Period was characterized primarily by the rise in power of provincial administrators in various regions and the decline of central authority in Memphis. During this time, no grand monuments on the scale of the Old Kingdom pyramids of Giza were constructed, as there was no strong central ruler to order and fund them, nor an administrative system capable of organizing such massive labor forces. The cultural image that emerges from the study of historical records does not suggest a chaotic dark age, but rather a different socio-political model from what had existed before. There is some historical evidence of unrest and claimed disorder, which stemmed mainly from the absence of a unified, strong central government. Various regions of the country were essentially self-governing. The lack of information about the kings of the 7th and 8th dynasties indicates their ineffectiveness. Their names and reigns were largely forgotten in Egyptian annals. The ancient city of Memphis was at some point abandoned by rulers who considered themselves the heirs of the Old Kingdom kings. Latte, the rulers of the 9th and 10th dynasties seized Heracleopolis as their capital and proclaimed themselves the true kings of Egypt. In Thebes, a nomarch named Intef, who bore the customary titles of Great Ruler of the Nome and Overseer of Priests, rose to prominence around 2150 BCE, opposing the authority of the Heracleopolitan kings. Intef founded a new dynasty in Egypt and set in motion the process of reunification that led to the Middle Kingdom. He was known as Intef the Mighty, and a monument in his honor was erected at the Temple of Karnak. This marked the path leading to the beginning of a new era, the Middle Kingdom. Although Mentuhotep II is known as the second unifier of Egypt and the founder of the Middle Kingdom, the path toward unification was laid by his predecessors. Around 2050 BCE, Mentuhotep followed Intef's path, conquering neighboring nomes for Thebes, greatly increasing the city's prestige and power. His initiatives were continued by his successors. Mentuhotep II used these early victories to ultimately defeat Heracleopolis and then punish the nomes that remained loyal to the old kings, while rewarding those who honored Thebes. After unification, Mentuhotep II devoted his time to governance, military achievements, and major building projects. His successor, Mentuhotep III, ruled from BC, maintaining and expanding his predecessor's programs. He sent an army to Punt and strengthened the borders of the northern delta. He was succeeded by Mentuhotep IV, whose 7-year reign remains little known. But he likely continued his predecessor's policies effectively as the nation prospered. When Amenhotep succeeded him as monarch, he was previously the vizier of Mentuhotep IV and had been sent on an expedition to Wadi Hammamhat, where he discovered valuable stones. King Amenhotep I founded the administrative center Tuchtoi, located south of Memphis. For unknown reasons, he distanced himself from earlier political ties. While selecting stone for a major royal monument, he reportedly witnessed extraordinary events that were later recorded. First, a pregnant gazelle gave birth directly on the block chosen for the top of the royal sarcophagus. This was interpreted as a divine sign. confirming the right choice of a stone imbued with fertility and life force. Second, during a ceremonial gathering, rain suddenly began to pour, revealing a well large enough to provide water for everyone present. These events were later interpreted as signs that Amenhotep had been chosen by the gods to rule, as they allowed him to witness miracles. The first successor of Amenhotep I, Senusret I, who reigned approximately from 1971 to 1926 BCE, actively strengthened the state's administrative systems and revived large-scale construction projects, characteristic of earlier eras, symbols of royal power. Among his initiatives was the construction of a temple dedicated to the god Amun at Karnak, which laid the foundation for the creation of the vast temple complex that would later stand there. Like his predecessors, Amenhotep I limited the authority of local administrators, nomarchs, and priests, concentrating power in the hands of his most trusted officials. Senusret I continued this policy. Governance during the 12th dynasty was so effective that, unlike in the Old Kingdom, wealth remained concentrated in the hands of the king, while still allowing individual regions to develop and prosper, but without becoming overly independent. The king ruled the entire country, and loyal officials were rewarded for their service. The Egyptians developed advanced methods of irrigation and water control. They built structures to measure the height of the annual Nile flood, which allowed them to determine taxation levels. Water channels were dug to deliver water to different areas. When Senusret I decided to turn the Fayum region into a major agricultural center, he designed a unique irrigation system with an earthen embankment that redirected water from Lake Moeris, leading to an abundance of crops in the area. He also initiated the construction of the Whitechapel, a monument of great importance to scholars, as it contains a list of all administrative districts of that period. After Senusret I, Amenhotep II ruled around 1929-18, 95 BCE, and may have governed jointly with him. The practice of co-regency, in which a chosen heir, usually a son, ruled alongside the reigning king, was a hallmark of the Middle Kingdom. This system allowed the future ruler to learn his duties and ensured a smooth transfer of power. Scholars still debate how widespread this practice was, though it is certain that it was used by Amenhotep II and his successor, Senusret II, who ruled approximately from 1897 to 1878 BCE. Official records containing double dates for two rulers confirm the existence of this co-regency. Little is known about the reign of Amenhotep II, but Senusret II is noted for his excellent relations with regional nomarchs and for contributing to the country's prosperity. It is worth noting that under Senusret II, local officials achieved great success, much like they had at the end of the Old Kingdom, yet this did not cause the same difficulties for the state as before. Senusret II was succeeded by Senusret III, who ruled around 1878 to 1860 BCE, the most powerful ruler of this period, whose reign was so successful that he was deified during his lifetime. His rule was marked by military achievements, especially his campaigns in Nubia, as well as by the growth of Egypt's wealth and influence. Senusret III embodied the Egyptian ideals of valor and decisive action. He represented the pinnacle of the warrior king archetype, and was believed to be invincible at the head of his armies. His expeditions into Nubia expanded Egypt's borders, and the fortifications he built along the frontiers contributed greatly to the flourishing of trade. He also led a campaign into the region of Palestine, which improved Egypt's trade relations with that area. To control the flooding of the Nile and direct water into irrigation channels the ancient Egyptians built earthen and stone embankments and dams, such as the Lahan Dam constructed. During the reign of King Amenhotep II, who succeeded Senusret II, his goal was to use floodwaters efficiently for irrigation while protecting the nation from the destructive effects of excessively high floods. Preparation for the sowing season began in early November, before the floodwaters had completely receded from the basins. Before plowing and planting, irrigation structures were repaired or cleaned, and the boundaries of agricultural plots were re-evaluated. Because the ancient Egyptians were known for their habit of documenting every detail of daily life, we can observe the process of planting and harvesting grain vividly depicted in the wall paintings of various tombs. A wide variety of crops were cultivated, providing an abundance of food. Emmer wheat was used for making bread and beer. Grapes were grown for wine, and dates, dum palm fruit, figs, sycamore fruit, and papyrus were also common. The stems of papyrus were used to make rolls resembling paper, as well as for sails, ropes, and even mats. Farmers used different tools, among which one of the most remarkable was the shaduf, a manually operated device for lifting water from the river. It consisted of a long pole with a bucket attached to one end by a rope and a counterweight at the other end. The shaduf was used to fill containers for transport or to pour water into small irrigation channels along the fields. Naturally, the question arises, how could an ancient civilization build such massive structures and move colossal statues without the technology available in the modern world? Some scenes in the tombs of high-ranking officials serve as evidence of how this process was carried out. In the tomb of Jehotittip of Hermopolis, a governor of the 15th nome of Upper Egypt during the 12th dynasty, there is a remarkable depiction showing the transport of a monumental statue approximately 6.8 meters 22 feet, tall, being pulled by 172 men with ropes along a sled, while water was poured in front of the sled to reduce friction. Unfortunately, no trace of this colossal statue has ever been found. Amenhotep II did not achieve major military triumphs but built nearly as many monuments as his father. He was responsible for the construction of a vast funerary complex at Hawara known as the Labyrinth. Amenhotep II, who ruled around 1815 to 1807, succeeded him and maintained his policies. He completed his father's projects and began many of his own. During his reign, numerous military and trade expeditions were undertaken. Trade flourished with the cities of the Levant, especially Byblos and other regions. The practice of co-regency, when applied, ensured smooth transitions of power from ruler to ruler. However, it failed in the case of Amenhotep III, who had no male heir to prepare as successor. After his death, the throne passed to his sister, or possibly his wife, Pharaoh, who ruled around 1807 to 1802 BCE. Little is known about her reign, except that she may have been the first historically attested female ruler since the pre-dynastic period. Aside from the possibly mythical queen Nitocris of the Old Kingdom's 6th dynasty, Pharaoh was indeed the first woman to rule Egypt since early dynastic times. The 12th dynasty ended when she died without an heir, and the 13th dynasty began with the reign of Sobkhotep I, around 1802 to 1800 BCE. The 12th dynasty of the Middle Kingdom was the most powerful and prosperous. The 13th dynasty inherited its wealth and political system, but failed to manage them effectively. Although it largely continued the policies of its predecessors and maintained the country's unity, none of its rulers possessed the same personal authority or strength as the kings of the 12th dynasty. According to incomplete records, independent political groups began to form in Lower Egypt. The second intermediate period began when the rulers of the 13th dynasty moved the capital from Ijtoi to Thebes, which had been the capital at the end of the 11th dynasty in Upper Egypt, thereby weakening their authority in the north. Amenhotep I at the beginning of the 12th dynasty had founded a small settlement called Hutweret, later known as Avaris, in the far north, which eventually became a major trade hub with easy access to the sea and to land routes leading to Sinai and Palestine. During the 13th dynasty, active trade and immigration led to an increase in the number of Semitic peoples living in Avaris. Over time, these groups became wealthy and influential enough to seize political control of the country. These people were known to the Egyptians as the Hyksos. The origin of the term Hyksos remains uncertain. Various theories have been proposed, including the possibility that they were refugees fleeing invasions in Asia, the hypothesis of a northern invasion has been disproven, as has the claim that they were conquerors. The Egyptians referred to them broadly as Asiatics, a term used for all peoples living beyond Egypt's eastern border, from the Levant to Mesopotamia. By the end of the 13th dynasty, Egyptian kings had stopped supplying the border fortresses located in Nubia, and no new troops were sent there. The soldiers who had already been stationed in these forts never returned to Egypt. Instead, they settled permanently in those regions. These former garrisons became intermediaries in trade between Egypt and the Kingdom of Kush, because the 13th dynasty neglected both the southern and northern frontiers. The Kingdom of Kush developed into a centralized power with its capital at Kerma. Some ancient Egyptian fortresses along the border were destroyed at some point, possibly during attacks. Although this remains unclear, it is evident that as the Egyptian government in Thebes ignored Kush's growing influence in the south, Kushite power expanded, and the frontier became more fluid. The troops left behind no longer considered it their duty to defend Egypt from invasions. By that time, they had become more accustomed to the role of traders than of soldiers. The rulers recorded for the later part of the 13th and 16th dynasties were not Egyptians, or at least more non-Egyptian names are believed to have been Hyksos kings. Their chronology is confusing. Some names are known only from ceremonial objects, while others appear only in fragmentary king lists, making accurate dating difficult. The Hyksos achieved economic dominance in the eastern Nile Delta and then expanded northward, forming treaties and alliances with various nomarchs, provincial governors in Lower Egypt, until they controlled a significant territory and were able to exercise political authority. Once established in Avaris, the Hyksos appointed Egyptians to important administrative positions, adopted Egyptian customs and clothing, and incorporated Egyptian gods into their own religious practices. The Hyksos rulers founded Egypt's 15th dynasty, but once they were expelled, the Theban rulers who replaced them destroyed almost all traces of Hyksos' presence in Egypt. Only a few Hyksos kings' names are known today, thanks to the surviving inscriptions and artifacts discovered in Avaris and other sites, among them the most famous ruler Apepi Apophis. At the same time that the Hyksos rose to power in the north, the Nubians grew stronger in the south. The 13th dynasty of the Middle Kingdom, much like Lower Egypt, had neglected the defense of its southern frontier. Thebes remained the capital of Upper Egypt, but instead of ruling over the entire country, it found itself trapped between the Hyksos in the north and the Nubians in the south. According to Manetho, the Hyksos king Apophis is said to have written a letter to the Theban king. Sekenena, thou around 1580 BCE destroy the pond of hippopotamuses to the east of the city, for they keep me from sleeping day and night. This message most likely referred to hippopotamus hunting, which would have been deeply offensive to the Hyksos, who worshipped the god Set, a deity that incorporated the hippopotamus into his religious symbolism and rituals. Instead of complying with this demand, Tao took it as a challenge to his independence and marched toward Avaris. His mummy shows evidence that he died in battle, suggesting that the Thebans were defeated in that confrontation. Tao's son, Kamose, continued the struggle, bitterly lamenting in an inscription that he was forced to pay tribute to the Asiatics and deal with foreigners both to the north and the south of his kingdom. He launched a massive attack on the Hyksos and, according to his own account, destroyed Avaris. Kamose claimed that his assault was so swift and terrifying that it rendered the Hyksos women barren, and that he razed the city to the ground after great bloodshed. However, this account appears to be exaggerated, as the Hyksos maintained control over Lower Egypt for about 3 more years after Kamose's campaign, and Avaris remained their stronghold. Kamose was succeeded by his brother Amose-I, who, according to inscriptions, expelled the Hyksos from Egypt and destroyed their capital, Avaris. These events are also described in the tomb inscriptions of another man, Ahmose, son of Ebana. A soldier who fought under King Amose-I. He recounts the devastation of Avaris and the retreat of the remaining Hyksos to Sharuan, a city in the region of Palestine. Amose-I then besieged Sharuan for 6 years, until the Hyksos fled once again, this time into Syria, after which their fate is unknown. Amose-I not only founded the 18th dynasty, but also ushered in the new kingdom of Egypt, the era of the Egyptian Empire. The Hyksos invasion became the driving reason for the creation of a professional Egyptian military as Ahmose I, and his successors sought to ensure that no foreign power would ever again gain such dominance over Egyptian soil. The triumph that marked the beginning of the new kingdom became an era of unprecedented prosperity and achievement, the legacy of the second intermediate period. The 18th dynasty, founded by Amose-I, would go on to build some of the most magnificent and enduring monuments since the time of the early pyramids, and expand Egypt's borders, turning it into a vast empire. Amose-I understood that the Hyksos had managed to gain power only because earlier pharaohs had allowed them to. As a result, he resolved to fortify Egypt's borders, rebuild abandoned settlements, and establish fortified zones at strategic locations to protect the nation. His campaigns against the Hyksos brought him and his armies into Palestine and Syria, where he continued his operations, as well as into the south against Cush and Nubia. By the time of his death, he had secured Egypt's borders, consolidated royal power, and left behind a stable political and economic foundation for his successor. Amenhotep Ier circa de 1541 à 1520 BCE. Inscriptions show that Amenhotep I followed his father's policies and regarded him as the ideal warrior king. However, it is likely that his military actions were limited to Nubia. There is no evidence that he campaigned in Palestine or Syria. Although these regions remained secure during his reign and that of his successor, Thutmose Ier circa de 1520 à 1492 BCE, he suppressed a Nubian revolt that broke out shortly after his accession to the throne, personally executing the Nubian ruler and displaying his body on the prow of his ship as a warning to others. He then extended Egypt's control even further south into Nubia before turning his attention to Palestine and Syria. Thutmose I also expanded the Great Temple at Karnak and built numerous other temples and structures throughout Egypt. Thutmose II circa de 1492 à 1479 BCE about his reign, as it was soon overshadowed by his powerful half-sister, Hatshepsut. Hatshepsut de 1479 à 1458 BCE of the Thutmose II had one child with her and another with a secondary wife. That second child was appointed his heir and reigned from approximately 581 to 5 BCE. After the death of Thutmose II, Hatshepsut was appointed regent and officially co-ruled with Thutmose III. Over, she was the true driving force behind the reign of her husband and continued to act independently after his death. Hatshepsut oversaw numerous construction projects, led a highly successful expedition to Punt, expanded the Temple of Karnak, and maintained peaceful relations with Nubia to the south. Her building initiatives were so grand and numerous that later pharaohs claimed credit for them. They were able to do this because her name had been erased from her monuments, including her magnificent Deir el-Bahari complex around 1458 BCE, the tall stone pillars, or obelisks, erected in various temples were symbols of the sun god, and many of them can be found across the world today, some genuine Egyptian originals, others modern imitations. The process of creating them is no longer a mystery, as an unfinished obelisk remains in the granite quarries of Aswan. It was likely commissioned by Hatshepsut to stand as a pair to what later became known as the Lateran obelisk, originally located in Karnak, but later transported to the Lateran Palace in Rome. Thutmose III, who ruled from 40, inherited a wealthy and secure state and immediately began to expand it. He created an Egyptian empire that would be sustained by his descendants. Using war chariots adopted from the Hyksos, bronze weapons, and improved military strategies, he defeated neighboring nations and expanded Egypt's influence farther than ever before. Over Eledatlis campaigns, conquering territories from Libya to Syria, and extending Egypt's power south from Ban to Kerma. After Hatshepsut's death, Thutmose III ascended the throne. Many considered him young and inexperienced. The ruler of Kadesh provoked a rebellion in the Egyptian province of Canaan, which quickly gained support from other regions seeking to overthrow Egyptian dominance. This coalition gathered in the city of Megiddo. Thutmose III marched his army from Thebes to Megiddo in northern Canaan, wisely choosing a narrow route through Aruna, surprising his enemies. Entering the valley of Kina, he broke through their defenses and forced them into retreat. However, he then had to lay siege to Megiddo before it finally fell. Janini, the general and royal scribe accompanying Thutmose III on this campaign, recorded the events in detail. Thutmose III was so impressed with his account that he ordered the text to be carved on the walls of the great temple of Amun at Karnak, and partially in other temples as well. The text begins with an explanation of why it was inscribed on the temple walls, then proceeds to describe the campaign and its motives. The unfortunate enemy mentioned several times the king of Kadesh was the one who initiated the uprising and rallied the coalition against Egypt. However, at times, this title is used to refer to all who joined the rebellion. After the Battle of Megiddo, Thutmose III subdued and punished the rebels, conquering not only Kadesh, but also all of Syria and the territories of Mitanni in Mesopotamia. He was succeeded by his son Amenhotep II circa 1425 to 1400 BCE, who inherited a powerful and stable kingdom and continued to develop it. Although not a warrior king, Amenhotep II commissioned many construction projects and established peace treaties and trade agreements with other nations such as Mitanni. His successor, Thutmose IV, circa de 1400 à 1390 BC's programs. His famous dream steely recounts how he came to power, suggesting a divine selection, although sometimes considered a usurper. Thutmose IV was actually the legitimate son of Amenhotep II. He is best known as the pharaoh who restored the Great Sphinx of Giza. He was succeeded by Amenhotep III circa 1386 to 1353 BCE, who is regarded as one of Egypt's most powerful and effective rulers. Amenhotep III ruled Egypt during a time of its greatest prosperity in art, politics, and economy. His reign was one of the most luxurious in Egyptian history, and he often used his immense wealth to persuade other nations to act according to his wishes. He maintained the stability of the country, expanded its borders, and devoted himself to artistic and architectural projects. Many of Egypt's most impressive monuments date back to his rule. However, during his reign, the priesthood of the god Amun began to accumulate increasing amounts of wealth. They came to own more land than the pharaoh himself and used it to further enrich their order. Amenhotep III attempted to restrain their growing influence by forming an alliance with the worship of the god Aten, a minor solar deity represented by the sun disk. He likely believed that the authority of the king backing Aten's worship would elevate Aten's followers above the priests of Amun. His plan was not entirely successful, but he did raise Aten's status of development that would play a crucial role during the reign of his son and successor, Amenhotep IV, better known as Akhenaten. Amenhotep IV, known as the Egyptian ruler, who introduced a form of monotheism and outlawed the worship of the traditional gods. His reign is known as the Amarna period, named after the new capital city he established at Amarna, moving it from Thebes. He ascended the throne as Amenhotep IV, but in the 4th or 5th year of his reign, he changed his name to Akhenaten. He abolished the old religion, particularly the worship of Amen, and elevated Aten to the position of the one true God. The cult of Aten became the only officially recognized religious institution. All other temples were closed, and their worship was forbidden. Akhenaten built a temple to Aten within the great temple of Amen at Karnak, which he later shut down completely. His wife was the famous Nefertiti, best known for her exquisite bust sculpted by Thutmose. After Akhenaten's death, he was circa de 1336 à 1327 BCE, who quickly changed his name to Tutankhamun and ascended the throne at about 9 years old. The young Pharaoh moved the capital to Memphis, restored Thebes as Egypt's religious and political center, reopened temples, and revived the traditional Egyptian religion. Although he implemented important reforms that helped stabilize the country, Tutankhamun is best known for his magnificent tomb. Discovered by Howard Carter in 1922, Tutankhamun was married to his half-sister Ankhesenamun, and he died around the age of 18. After his death, Ankhesenamun may have married the Vizier I, who possibly ruled from around 1324 to 1320 BCE. Some experts consider Tutankhamun's direct successor, while others believe Ankhesenamun may have tried to rule independently, separate from A's authority. Soon after Tutankhamun's death, Ankhesenamun disappeared from the historical record, and power passed to the military commander Horemheb, who sought to restore Egypt's former greatness. Horemheb circa 1320 a 1295 BC made extensive efforts to erase the rulers of the Amarna period from Egyptian history, destroying all depictions and inscriptions of Akhenaten and completely demolishing his temple at Karnak. Horemheb defended traditional Egyptian religion and customs. Egypt's foreign relations and infrastructure had deteriorated during Akhenaten's reign. But Horemheb restored much of Egypt's stability and prestige, though he could not fully return it to its former peak. Upon Horemheb's death, having no heir, his vizier Peremesu seized power and became Ramses I, the founder of the 19th dynasty. Ramses I was already an elderly man when he ascended the throne, and he quickly appointed his son, Seti I, as his successor. Ramses I resumed Horemheb's efforts to restore Egypt's temples and sanctuaries, while also adding to the great temple of Amen at Karnak. He entrusted Seti with leading military campaigns to reclaim the territories that had been lost during Akhenaten's reign. Upon Ramses I's death, Seti I took the throne and continued his father's reforms and revival of Egypt, adding his own contributions to the massive building projects at Karnak and preparing his son and heir, Ramses II, 1279 to 1213 BCE, who would become Egypt's most famous pharaoh. Ramses II ruled Egypt for 67 years, and the magnificent temples and monuments he built in honor of his conquests and achievements still stand today as testimony to the grandeur and wealth of his reign. There is scarcely an ancient Egyptian monument that does not bear his name. The story of his participation in the Battle of Kadesh 1270 for BCE became legendary. However, one of Ramses II's greatest achievements as a ruler was not military. Avec le diplomatique de nos history, the Hittites of Anatolia had been growing in power since the 2nd millennium BCE. By this time, they had surpassed Babylon as a major force and began to challenge Egypt. Letters expressing their intentions were once sent to Akhenaten, the pharaoh of the 18th dynasty, but he ignored them and took no action against their movements along Egypt's borders. Horemheb had fought unsuccessfully against the Hittites, who by the reign of Tutankhamun, Akhenaten's successor, had become even stronger, bold enough to establish military garrisons near Egypt's frontiers. When Horemheb became ruler around 1320 BCE, he launched a more decisive campaign against the Hittites, managing to secure Egypt's borders. Yet, the problem of Hittite incursions remained unresolved. Seti I successfully reclaimed Palestine and Kadesh for Egypt, but, content with his victory, did not fortify or hold the city. It then fell to Ramses II of the 19th dynasty to finally resolve the Hittite threat. In 1270 for BCE, he gathered his forces at Paramesses to drive the Hittites from Kadesh and weaken their army. Leading his army personally in his chariot, Ramses II commanded for divisions totaling about 20,000 soldiers. Ramses advanced rapidly with the 1st Division, which soon outpaced the other 3. Near Kadesh, his forces captured the Bedouin nomads and questioned them about the location of Muwatalli II, the Hittite king, and his army. They claimed the Hittite army was far from Kadesh and that Muwatalli feared Egypt and its young pharaoh. But these nomads were Hittite spies. Muwatalli had already fortified Kadesh with 3,500 chariots and 37,000 soldiers, hiding just beyond the nearby hills. According to some battle accounts, Ramses II later captured other scouts who revealed the terrible truth: he had fallen into an ambush, but the warning came too late. Eager to seize Kadesh, Ramses had outdistanced the rest of his army, just as the Hittite chariots charged directly into his camp. He immediately sent urgent messages to the other divisions. The Ptah division arrived in time to prevent total defeat, and Ramses II himself, showing great courage, led the Ammon division in repeated counterattacks, driving the Hittites back to the Orontes River, where many drowned while retreating. Muwatalli could have emerged from Kadesh to trap Ramses' army between his forces by the river and his reserves in the city, but for unknown reasons. He chose to remain within Kadesh, never deploying his reinforcements. Ramses proclaimed the Battle of Kadesh a great victory, ordering his scribes to record the epic story of his heroism on temple walls. Muwatalli's own version of events, however, told a very different story, claiming a Hittite victory. In truth, while Ramses II failed to capture Kadesh, he decisively defeated the Hittite army in open battle, cementing his reputation as one of Egypt's greatest warrior kings. Although Muwatalli retained control over Kadesh, he did not destroy the Egyptians as he had intended. Merneptah was the 12th son of Ramses II and was not originally designated as his heir. He ascended the throne only because all his older brothers had died during his father's long reign. Merneptah soon adopted his father's image as a warrior king, defeating the Libyans in battle and repelling an attack by the Sea Peoples. His record of deeds includes the famous Merneptah Stele, which contains the first known mention of Israel as a tribal group. Moving on to the 20th dynasty, Ramses II was the last powerful ruler of the new kingdom. After Horemheb had restored the ancient religion, the power of the priests of Amun steadily grew, diverting both wealth and influence away from the pharaoh's authority. During the era of the Ramessides the 20th dynasty, this situation worsened. Military conflicts became more common as threats from various foreign groups increased. The invasion of the so-called Sea Peoples became a major challenge for Egypt, forcing Pharaoh Ramses III to engage in direct military confrontation. The exact origin of these invaders remains a mystery, as the only evidence of their existence comes from Egyptian sources that describe them solely through the lens of warfare. An inscription on the Tanis Stele reads, "They came from the sea in their warships, and none could stand before them." This phrase is typical of Egyptian descriptions of these mysterious intruders. Ramses III, his son and successor Merneptah, and another ruler named Ramses are often mentioned as the three great kings whose annals recount struggles and victories over the Sea Peoples. All claimed great triumphs over their enemies, and their inscriptions remain the most comprehensive documentary sources about these seaborne invaders. During the reign of Ramses III, the Sea Peoples invaded and destroyed the important Egyptian trading center at Kadesh, then launched a new attempt to invade Egypt itself. Their campaign began with swift raids along the coast before moving toward the Nile Delta around 1180 BCE. Ramses III managed to repel them, but the enemies soon returned with renewed strength. Ramses III, aware of his predecessor's costly battles with these fierce tribes, abandoned the idea of an open-field confrontation and instead adopted guerrilla tactics. He set up ambushes along the coastline and within the Nile Delta. His archers proved especially effective concealed among coastal vegetation. They rained arrows on enemy ships at his signal. The vessels were then set ablaze with flaming arrows after their crews had been slain or drowned. Having crushed the naval invasion, Ramses III turned his attention to the remaining land forces of the invaders. Using the same tactics as before, he defeated the Sea Peoples again in 1178 BCE near the coast of Suwa. Egyptian chronicles once more celebrated a decisive victory in which many invaders were killed while others were captured, conscripted into the Egyptian army and navy, or sold into slavery. Although Ramses III saved Egypt from outright conquest, the battle cost the kingdom dearly, so much so that the royal treasury was depleted. This financial strain led to the first recorded labor strike in history, when the tomb builders at Deir el-Medina refused to work until they received their wages. From that moment, the might of the Egyptian empire began to gradually fade. Ramses III maintained strong central authority, ensured border security, and preserved the nation's prosperity, but around him, the kingdom slowly began to disintegrate. The office of Pharaoh no longer carried the sacred power it once held. Partly, this decline occurred because the priests of Amun had become intermediaries between the gods and the people. Ramses III was wounded in an assassination attempt organized by one of his secondary wives and later died from his injuries. Ramses IV, who ruled from 1155 to 1149 BCE, ascended the throne only after the death of his elder brothers. He tried to emulate the great pharaohs of the past, completing several construction projects and struggling to preserve the shrinking territory of the empire. However, his reign was short, and he died soon after. His successor, Ramses V, tried to maintain control amid growing conflict with the priests of Amun and to preserve the unity of the kingdom. His successor, Ramses VI, continued this struggle with limited success. After him came Ramses VII, Ramses VIII, Ramses X, Ramses X, and Ramses, all of whom sought to keep the kingdom united in the face of foreign invasions and internal strife with the powerful Amun priesthood. One episode related to this conflict, though not fully clear, involves a man named Amenhotep, the high priest of Amun, who was deposed by the vizier Pinesi and forced to flee south to Nubia. What is certain is that the priests of Amun maintained enormous influence and eventually reached the height of their power in Egypt, effectively ruling the country themselves. This period, known as the Third Intermediate Period, began under Smen's 1077 to 1051 BCE. The ruler of Lower Egypt, who governed from Tanis, following Egyptian custom. Smen's buried his predecessor, Ramses XI, thereby legitimizing his own claim to the throne. Smen's moved the capital from Parameses to Tanis. However, by this time, the Theban priests had grown powerful enough to assert their own claim to authority, and the country became divided. Tanis controlled Lower Egypt, and Thebes controlled Upper Egypt. Contrary to popular belief, this division did not lead to a large-scale civil war or internal chaos. Smen's wielded considerable influence, but controlled only parts of Lower Egypt. He ruled roughly contemporaneously with Herihor, the Theban high priest of Amun, who held power around 1080 to 1070 for BCE. Herihor was also a military leader, but like all high priests of Amun, his influence outside Thebes was limited. This political model dominated much of the Third Intermediate Period. Individual nomarchs, provincial governors gained power at the expense of the central government, similar to what had occurred during the First Intermediate Period. Neither Tanis nor Thebes managed to establish significant control over all of Egypt. The 22nd dynasty, which ruled under Libyan titles, was also of Libyan origin. Its founder, Shoshenq, the first 943 to 922 BCE, reunited Egypt and launched military campaigns reminiscent of the Great Imperial Era. Shoshenq I reformed the administration in Tanis and reorganized the priesthood in Thebes. The office of high priest ceased to be hereditary and became a royal appointment, as did the selection of the goddess wife of Amun. His military enterprises revived the Egyptian economy, and during his reign, the country once again approached the power and prosperity of the new kingdom. After him, Osorkon ascended the throne around 872 BCE and managed to maintain the nation's unity. However, after his reign, Egypt once again fragmented into several smaller kingdoms ruled from Heracleopolis. Tanis, Sais, Memphis, and Hermopolis in Lower Egypt, and from Thebes in Upper Egypt. To the south, the Kushite ruler Kashta, around 750 BCE, saw Egypt's vulnerability and decided to take advantage of it. Kashta admired Egyptian culture and gave his capital Napata, and thus his entire realm, a distinctly Egyptian character. He maintained strong trade relations with Thebes and was well versed in the procedures for appointing priests and high officials. By 747 to 721 BCE, his son Paipionki had consolidated Nubian control over Upper Egypt. When the kings of Lower Egypt protested, Pai marched north with a great army. He conquered Lower Egypt, capturing and subduing all its major cities before returning to Nopeta. Legally, Egypt was now under his rule, though he allowed the local rulers of Lower Egypt to regroup and retain limited power. These buffer states gradually disappeared during the Third Intermediate Period, and Egypt lost the strength and unity it had once possessed. However, states such as Judah and Israel still existed on Egypt's borders, serving as natural buffer zones. The conquest of these regions by Shoshenq brought Egypt's frontiers directly up to Assyria, eliminating any intermediary territories. Moving into the 26th dynasty, Psamtik emerged as a powerful ruler who revived the glory of Egypt's past through large-scale construction projects, restorations, and military achievements. His son, Necho to 610 to 595 BCE, continued his father's work by launching military campaigns, commissioning new building projects, and expanding the army. The Egyptians had never been great seafarers, and Necho too, realizing this, created a navy of Greek mercenaries, which proved highly effective. He is often depicted as a great warrior and commander who strengthened the kingdom he inherited. During the reign of Amasis II, the administration of state finances was successfully reformed. The economy was stimulated, and Egypt once again prospered thanks to a strong economy, secure borders, and thriving trade. Numerous temples and artistic works were completed, and Egypt's reputation regained some of its former brilliance. Iwa Psamtik ketiga, 526 BCE ahead. The Persian king Cambyses sent a message to Amasis requesting the hand of one of his daughters in marriage. Amasis, unwilling to submit but wishing to avoid direct conflict, sent instead the daughter of his predecessor, Uprise. This former Egyptian princess was deeply insulted by Amasis' deception, especially since Egyptian custom forbade noblewomen from being given in marriage to foreign rulers. Upon arriving at Cambyses' court, she revealed her true identity, and Cambyses swore revenge on Amasis for deceiving him with a false bride. In contrast to Cambyses, Darius I sought to govern Egypt even in his absence. He ascended the throne of the Achaemenid Empire in 520 BCE and visited Egypt at least twice, though he generally ruled it from afar. Nevertheless, he admired Egyptian culture and funded the restoration of destroyed temples and the construction of new ones. Following the Persian policy of religious tolerance, Darius honored Egyptian gods with gifts and statues. He is widely regarded as a more lenient ruler of Egypt compared to Cambyses. During the Second Persian invasion of Greece in 480 BCE, Darius' son, Xerxes I 486 to 465 BCE, drew upon all the resources of the Achaemenid Empire, including Egypt's. However, the Persians suffered major defeats at Salamis 480 BCE and Plataea 479 BCE. Afterward, Xerxes turned away from external campaigns, focusing instead on construction projects and the life of the royal court. Artaxerxes 465-424 BC spent 6 years suppressing the first major Egyptian revolt, led by Inaros II, the Libyan prince, and son of Psamtik V, who was encouraged and supported by Athens for 62-454 BCE. Despite periods of Persian domination during the 27th and 31st dynasties, Egyptian culture endured. Native Egyptian dynasties eventually reclaimed power. briefly restoring Egypt's former glory before the Persians once again invaded. This era spans from the 27th to the 31st dynasties of Egypt. Resistance to Persian rule appeared throughout the country, yet Egypt also prospered under Persian administration, as Persian kings generally respected Egyptian traditions. Rulers such as Amirtaeus of the 28th dynasty, Nectanebo I, and Nectanebo II governed Egypt as sovereign pharaohs, commandés d'armée, and commissioned construction projects in the grand style of their illustrious predecessors. Whoever may have been behind the revolts against Persian domination, the Second Persian conquest of Egypt proved short-lived. Soon after, Philip II of Macedon, 359 to 336 BCE, defeated the Greek city-states and incorporated them into the expanding Macedonian kingdom. When he was killed in 336 BCE, he had been preparing for a grand expedition to subdue Persia. He already possessed all the means necessary for conquest, which he passed on to his son Alexander. The pharaohs of the 30th dynasty upheld the honor of Egyptian royal authority and left behind impressive monuments following the example of their predecessors. Thus, although the late period can be considered the end of Egyptian sovereignty, it should not be regarded as the end of Egyptian civilization. Evento de Egypt's cultural achievements command respective, not all, and remain among the most popular and intriguing in the ancient world. Though times have changed, modern Egypt of the 21st century may be seen as an evolved version of ancient Egypt. The Nile River is still sacred to the Egyptian people, who continue to celebrate many of the same ancient festivals, such as the spring celebrations. The cuisine is still largely inspired by authentic ancient dishes. Traditions remain alive. Even the final stage of the ancient language Coptic is still used in Egypt during church services and can be heard in their Arabic dialect. The modern inhabitants take great pride in their heritage. This was evident during the parades in Cairo dedicated to the transfer of royal mummies to the Museum of Civilization and the reopening of the Avenue of Sphinx in Luxor. They are building new cities and cutting roads through mountains and deserts to improve trade. The world's largest museum is soon to open. Daily excavations continue to bring new discoveries that may one day rival the finding of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922, and this land will forever remain a captivating, enigma-dazzling, and enchanting people from all over the world with its magic and history. Friends, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. Your support helps our stories reach more amazing people just like you, and you'll never miss a single new tale. Go ahead, join our growing story-loving family today.